your first year, it was so big, you had this big push, you became champion, but some people might not know that before you debuted on TV, you did get to work with Owen Hart in a dark match. How did that come about? What was that experience like? Because you got to work with him before he sadly passed away.
Well, actually, 5 days before Owen Hart passed away, Vince McMahon decided to have a dark match with Owen Hart and myself. And at the time, I just started, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And Owen said, "Don't worry, I'll call it in the ring." And I'm like, "Holy don't say that, because I don't know how to call it in the ring." He said, "Don't worry, just listen to me and let me lead you." And we had one of the best 15-minute matches, and he made me build my confidence to a level that it never was before, because he carried me through this match, and the match turned out to be a pretty damn good match. And I just started a couple of months prior to that. So, you know, Owen Hart, he doesn't get enough credit for how good he was. I think that Bret gets most of the credit for being the best wrestler in the family, but Owen Hart was every bit as good as Bret Hart.
And you, I mean, because you got to sort of speak to Bret Hart later when you wanted to do a match with him, but it wasn't able to happen. I mean, do you often think about how it would have been if you and Owen had got to do more stuff, or if you and Bret had got to do stuff, and how well remembered that would be if it had happened?
Well, when I started in the business, I had my eyes set on Bret from the beginning. He drew my attention, and watching old footage of him, like WrestleMania, you know, his Iron Man match with Shawn Michaels, and all the matches that he had, he was the guy I always wanted to face. I always wanted to get in the ring with Bret Hart. And unfortunately, when I got to WWE, Bret just left and went to WCW, signed a big deal down there, and then he got kicked in the face by Goldberg, unfortunately, and ended up with a concussion, and it cost him his career. And then on top of that, he ends up having a stroke the following year. And I call him the following year, and I say, "Oh, hey, Bret, how about facing me at WrestleMania?" And this poor guy's like, "Kurt, I just had a stroke." It was crazy. So I understand why he said no, because I'm at the age. Not just because he had a stroke and he got kicked in the head and had a concussion, but I think that Bret knew that, don't get me wrong, hey, he did come back. He did wrestle Vince McMahon in a street fight. So he did come back, but there was no way he was going to face me, because he wouldn't be able to put on the Bret Hart performance that he knew he could in his prime. And I understand that now, because I'm in my 50s now, and I can't do what I used to do. And if someone came to me and asked me to do it, I'd think about it as well and say, I don't know if I could put on that Kurt Angle performance that people were expecting. So I understood why Bret did say no, even though he did have a stroke. Holy But, you know, I was cool with it, and I understood why he couldn't do it.
And in your first year, one of the most important people, I guess, was The Rock, because you got to work with him like a month into your main roster run on TV. Then you won the title from him. People always talk about how The Rock is quite a selfless performer, like he's not as upset about doing jobs maybe, and he's more giving. Did you have that experience with him? What was it like working with him?
Dwayne was great. The Rock was one of the best wrestlers I ever wrestled. And not only that, he was really good about winning and losing. He didn't really care. The reason is he was so over as a talent. He knew he was. His persona and what he did, not just in the wrestling ring, but on the microphone and backstage, he was the most entertaining guy in the history of the business, I think. I don't know how you feel, but he had something about him. You knew that he really enjoyed what he did, and he enjoyed entertaining the fans. And it didn't matter to him whether he won or lost matches. Don't get me wrong, he always won the World Heavyweight Championship. I think everybody does. But, you know, Dwayne was very selfless, and he you know, every time he lost to me, he was really cool about it. He didn't have an attitude, and I love that about him.
Were you surprised when he sort of went sort of full-time in movies? Did you think he was going to stick around? Because there seemed to be a couple of years where maybe he'll stay and do stuff, maybe he won't, and then obviously it petered out.
Well, you know what? When he started doing movies, I said, "There's no way in hell he's coming back." I mean, you know, he did he had a 5-picture deal with Lionsgate, and I believe the first movie was The Mummy Returns, and I knew that he wasn't coming back. He did come back every so often, but I knew he wasn't coming back full time. After he signed that 5-picture deal, I knew he would be a huge success in Hollywood. I think everybody knew it at the time.
And you know, people here might have seen the Dark Side of the Ring episode in the plane ride from hell, which Kurt was not on, so so you got off with that one. But you had your own plane ride from hell with Vince McMahon. And we actually did a show, I was thinking about this today, we did a show in 2016 with Matt Hardy, and he talked about how he remembers Vince on a plane, and it must have been the same one, saying, so Vince would go up to Matt and say, "Get Kurt for me."
Yep.
And this is the same point.
Okay, what happened on the plane? It was a disaster. Vince was feeling frisky that night. And, you know, when we were done with our show, we were in Asia. We were flying back to the United States. And Vince started drinking wine. And he was probably 3 bottles in. And so he gets this idea in his head, you know, I'm Vince McMahon. And this is how Vince is. I want to explain to you how Vince really is. If Mike Tyson walked in the room, he would say, "Mike Tyson, I want you to punch me in the face as hard as you can. Because I want to feel what it's like to, you know, get knocked out by the best of all time." So Vince had this attitude about him, and he thought, I would love to feel what it's like to wrestle Kurt Angle, Olympic style. So Vince had the talent. A lot of the wrestlers, he would tell them, "Hey, go grab Kurt, tell him to come down the aisle to talk to you privately, and then I'll take care of the rest." So Matt Hardy, Lita, you know, Trish Stratus, they would come and say, "Hey, Kurt, can I talk to you for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So I follow them back, and out of nowhere, Vince jumps me from behind. "Oh, I got you, Angle." And holy so I reverse him, I get him down, and I say, "Are we good?" He's like, "We're good, we're good." So, you know, this lasted 6 hours. It didn't stop. As a matter of fact, when we were landing the plane, Chris Jericho was sitting in front of me, and we're landing on the ground. Everybody's supposed to be in their seatbelts, in their seats, and Chris Jericho turns around and says, "Look down the aisle." I look down the aisle, and Vince is army crawling down the aisle to jump on me. I'm like, holy this is the plane ride from hell.